Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. So if that's also your thing, consider subscribing. So there's this movie called Megan is Missing, and it all of a sudden, out of nowhere, kind of went viral on TikTok, even though the movie's from 2011. So it's like 10 years old, but probably more popular now than it was at the time when it came out. And I know that I'm super late to the game because this actually went viral a couple months ago, but I was going to make a video on this and I had the entire video written actually, but then I got sick and I've, been in the hospital. So I came back and I still wanted to make this video even though it's not going to be perfect timing, but that's okay because, I still really wanted to talk about it. So I'm still going to do a recap of what the TikTok trend itself is and the actual movie because just in case you have no idea what I'm talking about, the TikTok trend is basically just teenagers that are filming their reactions to watching the movie and then talking about how disturbing it is and telling people not to watch it. And of course that just makes everybody want to watch it, including me, who ran off to watch it the night that I heard about it. So after reflecting a lot about the movie, especially since I've had such a long time to sit on it, not only do I have a lot of thoughts about the movie itself, but I decided that I also completely changed my mind about another disturbing movie that I did a video on, the Serbian Film movie, and the ethics of using children in creepy movies in general. So if you haven't seen my video on a Serbian film when I watched that film, which was deemed one of the most disturbing films of all time, I'll link that video down below, but just know that my thoughts have since changed, and then come back and watch this video to know my new thoughts. The other thing that people are freaking out about is that they think that this movie is either real and that this is real recovered footage, which it's not, or that it was based on a true story. And it is sort of based on a true story. It is very loosely based on the real murders of Ashley Pond and a girl named Miranda Gaddis. And they were schoolmates who became friends with this other girl, and her father was basically a monster. They eventually found the girl's remains in the father's backyard. Miranda was inside a microwave box inside his storage shed, and Ashley was in a barrel under a concrete slab that the father said was put in place to put a jacuzzi. But almost none of that actually matches the movie or the story itself, and it is a found footage horror film, but it's not real. Don't worry. None of this happened, and you'll know because the acting is terrible. So now I'm going to explain what the movie is about, and I'm going to have a lot of spoilers, and I'm going to spoil the end because I know a lot of you maybe don't actually want to watch the movie, but you want to know what happens. And so I'm going to explain also the most disturbing parts of the film. Of course, I'm not going to show really graphic scenes from the film because this is YouTube, but just know that that the storyline itself is incredibly triggering. If you have any triggers, it'll trigger you if you watch the film for sure, and having me describe it just so you know it's really, really messed up stuff. If you don't want to hear about the plot of the movie or you've already seen it, feel free to skip ahead. I put timestamps in the description as usual, so you can skip forward to my thoughts on the movie if you don't need a recap. So the film is about two best friends, Megan and Amy, and it's a compilation of their video chats, news segments, and vlogs. The first part of the movie is so slow, just establishing that Megan's popular, that her friends really hate Amy for no reason whatsoever, and Megan loves Amy anyway. Megan meets a guy online, and he seems really normal and sweet, even though there's tons of red flags, and she ends up meeting up with him.
Hey, can you tilt your webcam down a little?
Why?
And basically Megan is then never seen alive again. Amy is trying to find out what happened to Megan. Megan's kidnapper, the guy she met online, starts taunting her and threatening her. Then soon we see that Amy gets kidnapped as well. So that's like almost the first hour of the movie. The police then recover a video camera that the kidnapper dumped in the garbage, and the remaining 22 minutes of the film is the found footage on the video camera. And so, like I said, the first part of the movie is really slow, so not that much has actually happened up until this point, and it's not that scary. And then the last 22 minutes of the film is when everything creepy happens. So the first really triggering thing is the photo that we see of Megan, and it's called photo number 1, and then a few seconds later it shows you the picture. Basically it's Megan in this weird Saw movie contraption is the best way I can describe it, and her head is sticking out of a wooden board. Probably the creepiest part about this is that the look on her face is like frozen in a scream, and that's probably what disturbs most people about it. And then there's photo number 2, which is just basically her, the same thing at a different angle. And then we just see Amy get tortured pretty much. He has her trapped in this tiny little dungeon, and he makes her eat like a dog in order to earn back her childhood teddy bear so that she has some sort of comfort item while she's being held captive. Clearly, this is an attempt on the director's part to make it very clear that she is just a child and she's super innocent, but it's like, it seemed unnecessary to me. We already know that she's a child. The other thing that really bothered me about this kind of scene was that if you look at the dungeon that she's set up in, there's like a giant hole there that makes it look like if Amy wanted to get out, she could easily undo the lock from the inside. Like, I know it's in the interest of plot devices for her not to get out, but did anybody else notice that? And it just seemed like a bad plot hole to me. It looked like she could get out of there. Anyway, so the next very triggering thing is the violent, way too long scene of the sexual assault on Amy. All you see is Amy's head being pushed down on the table while her kidnapper assaults her. But not only is it triggering, but it lasts forever. I'll get back to that later, but that is probably the most triggering scene for a lot of people, is just that the unnecessary gratuity of showing the entire thing. So then we see the kidnapper open this barrel that he keeps subtly panning on, and inside we see Megan's body that is now decomposing but still has that same look on her face. The kidnapper then forces Amy into the barrel with her dead friend, takes the barrel to a remote location, and proceeds to start digging this huge hole. They're in the middle of nowhere, and all we hear is, again, Amy begging for her life. The kidnapper, of course, has no sympathy, and once he has a hole big enough, he dumps the barrel into the hole and buries Amy alive with her dead friend. By the way, I used the skip forward for a few seconds, like many times during this scene, because again, it went on for so long. Like, okay, we get it. It got so boring, honestly. It just, like, why did it have to go on for 10 minutes? Like, this, who made this movie, and I know who made the movie, had no creative, oh my God, had no creative thought process whatsoever. Like, this movie could have been 20 minutes, if that. But all in all, that is why it's so disturbing. So here's my thoughts on all of this. First and foremost, the acting is absolutely horrendous. And it makes the entire thing very unbelievable, and me also confused as to why anybody was afraid that this was real. I guess unless you're really young and haven't seen a lot of films, so you don't know the difference between good and bad acting. But seriously, every person that was in this movie looked like they were reading directly from a script.
She loved me, and I loved her back. I loved her so much, and now she's gone because of you.
I would say just for the terrible acting and directing alone, this movie was not worth the $2 that I paid to rent it. Second of all, let's talk about the disturbing bits, specifically the assault scene. Everyone seems pretty divided on this in general and the brutality of it. A lot of people argue, and I've seen this argument many times around the internet, that it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. It's a warning. It's something that really happens. It's a cautionary tale for teenagers to not meet strangers on the internet. But the other half of people seem to argue that it's gratuitous and exploitive of assault and violence, especially since the film involves children. So the director and writer, Michael Gua, and I probably said his name wrong, I'm sorry, he had this to say in a TikTok.
I didn't get to give you the customary warnings that I used to give people before they watched Megan is Missing, which are: do not watch the movie in the middle of the night, do not watch the movie alone, and if you see the words photo number 1 pop up on your screen, you have about 4 seconds to shut off the movie if you're already kind of freaking out before you start seeing things that maybe you don't want to see. So apologies to those who are already posting about how the movie has freaked them out, but fair warning to those of you who are still contemplating watching the film.
The TikTok gives us nothing. It's pretty much just a trigger warning, and he's pretty much just saying, yeah, it's disturbing, be careful. But he looks extremely proud of himself, and like he's very excited that it's finally getting any attention after all these years, and after it probably got a lot of really bad reviews when it first came out. And I'm sorry to him. Well, you know what? No, I'm not sorry to him as a director, because this movie was crappy. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like it was crappy, and it involved children that were violently... Okay, and here's the part of the video where I'm probably going to get a lot of dislikes from people that do believe that it should be put out there as a cautionary tale, but honestly, I don't really care. These are my thoughts, and this is why it changed my mind on a Serbian film. I am 10,000% on the side of people that just think it's unnecessary and exploitive of violence. First of all, I could not find the age of the girl that played Megan anywhere. If anyone knows how old she was at the time of making this film, please, please, please let me know, because I searched and searched and she seems to be pretty off the radar and I could not confirm her age. However, the actor who plays Amy was, according to the internet, 16 at the time of filming, and she was playing a 13-year-old girl. So for those of you that don't know, so she was born in 1989 and the film was filmed in 2006. So she was only 16 and maybe just turned 17. Either way, she was underage. And according to the Wikipedia page, because of the graphic content, the director requested that the parents of the young cast be on set during filming so they were fully aware of their children's involvement in the project. So my best guess is that Megan was not 18 either, considering he described it as the young cast. Again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong and if she was actually over 18. So my issue with this is that I cannot and will not understand why he couldn't just find 21-year-olds or even 18-year-olds for that matter that looked very young. There are so many full-grown adults out there that look like they're 12 years old. So I think it was so ridiculous and unnecessary to use actual children. And no, I don't care that their parents consented to this. So, second of all, yes, the violent scene was way too long. And this is the part where people argue, well, it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. Here's my argument against it. In movies and other media is always used as a cheap shock factor to make the creator seem just super edgy. And usually it's a man that's making these kinds of media that is having such gratuitous violent scenes. Second, does not need to be seen in order to be believed. The fact that he put the entire thing in the movie was just unnecessary, and it could have easily been just implied. I call this the 13 Reasons Why effect. We don't need to see an entire side from beginning to end to know what happened. You can get your point across without being exploitive. But at least in 13 Reasons Why, I'm pretty sure all those kids were over the age of 18. Third of all, the movie is not a good message to be careful with strangers. The movie itself is actually quite a disgusting misrepresentation of reality. In reality, the majority of sexual assault is committed by either somebody you know or a family member. The times where a psycho pervert just jumps out of the bushes and kidnaps you and takes you away are actually very rare. Making it seem like this movie is some powerful message to help teenagers is absolutely absurd. And I think honestly, I'd be way less hard on this movie if it wasn't trying to be so profound and if it was just supposed to be a stupid horror movie that was meant to scare you. Like, that's fine, but use adults to make it, and also don't pretend like it's some big helpful message like you made it to help the world be a better place, because we all know that's bullshit. Now, you may have already seen why my mind has changed if you have seen my other video on a Serbian film. So I generally still don't believe in censorship, but when I first talked about that film, I was defending the use of children in it by saying that, well, they weren't harmed and they were likely acting without knowing what was actually going on in the movie. And they were probably just knew they were actors. Their parents were nearby. The children were not actually harmed in any way, shape, or form. So I defended the movie and said, well, it's a gratuitous movie, but it shouldn't be censored, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, you can see my hypocrisy here now thinking about all this stuff on Megan is Missing. So the boy in a Serbian film, the really infamous scene, he is a lot younger than the 16-year-old actors in Megan is Missing. And like, why is that okay? Just because he's too young to understand the concept, doesn't that make it almost worse? Then it is really like you're exploiting the child, because you're not letting them in on what is actually going on and having them act out this really horrible thing that they might not even be aware that they're doing. At least the 16-year-old actor, even though still a child, yes, and may not be able to fully consent to knowing the things that they're acting out that will be in a film for forever, at least they do have some sort of concept that, you know, assault is bad and that's what they're doing, but that it's all fake and, you know, not actually harming anybody. However, the only thing I can't speak about is that a Serbian film, of course, was made in Serbia, and it was nowhere near my Western white culture that I'm used to. So I really can't speak on behalf of another culture because it might be completely different there. So I do give a little leniency there just because I don't know what I don't know. But I still think that I was wrong. And this whole thing has made me question using children in movies with questionable things at all. And it makes me think about that whole Cuties movie, you know, after watching D'Angelo Wallace's video on it, and just the fact that why couldn't they have used older people? And the suggestive stuff that happens in the film is exploitive of children. But then that's a fine line. Does that mean that we should never have children in movies with any sort of dark themes? Is it a decision we just leave up to the parents, and if they're fine with it, then we should be fine with it? If the parents were fine with it and consented, then we should just all shut up about it? I think we could gain a lot of ground here just by not sexualizing children in films, just period. And the thing is, we all know rape is bad. We all know is bad. So I don't think we need to use these concepts in films for shock factor alone, pretending like there's some giant message behind it. So anyway, that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it till the end. Please leave me a comment down below, and I will see y'all in the next one.